What's going on, all you wild Disney villains? Your favorite movie critics over here, Uncle Logan Myers and my good mate over there.
Uncle Logan Myers.
Wait a second. The same person?
There's two of us. Or am I an imposter?
Anyways, my good mate over there, Henry Hill. Tonight we're going to be talking about a brand new film that just premiered in theaters and on Disney. Plus, I'm talking about the live action prequel film about one of the most famous villains in all of the Disney universe. I'm talking about Cruella de Vil, also known as Cruella. But the newest live action prequel film, we have Craig Gillespie at the helm. He was the director of the film that was up for an Oscar a few years ago, I, Tonya, which about Tonya Harding, starring Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan. This time around, he's going for a more stylistic approach with a prequel film taking place back in London in the 1970s. We have a young Cruella, or also known as Estella, and her backstory of her being a child and making her way to London to become this designer, and how everything comes into play leading up until 101 Dalmatians, how she became this character that we know from, the original films and the cartoon, and also the film from 1996 starring Glenn Close as the famous character.
She had some big shoes to fill in this. Emma Stone did, of course, Glenn Close playing Cruella de Vil in the classic from Disney. So this one we're meeting up with Cruella when she's very young. To start out with, we meet her when she's just a little girl, and we see how she's going to grow up and turn into Cruella, because we find out early on that she isn't a bad person. She's not a bad person per se. She just had bad experiences in life, and the circumstances surrounding everything just made it happen that she ends up turning into Cruella de Vil. But it always isn't like that in the beginning. We meet up with Estella when she's younger, who will end up obviously turning into Cruella. Played by a younger character than Emma Stone. We see her when she was basically orphaned at a young age. We find out that the Baroness is a major character in this film. It's kind of like the villain in Cruella per se, but she's going to work with Emma Stone in the movie. The Baroness, she's this big fashion icon here in England in this film. And, Estella is she admires her very well, her work and sort of her style and all of her fashion and clothing senses. And, Estella wants to work for her one day, basically is how it's set up in the beginning.
She's kind of like the typical outcast, doesn't fit in with, school, like her people at school. They live in a small England town. Basically, they're going to make their way to London because she just doesn't fit in this town. She has like a rebellious streak, and we see her young with the black and white hair. Gets into trouble in school, so they're going to make their way to London. On the way there, they have to stop and pick up some money from her mom's old friend, is what they say in the film. It really sets up this traumatic event that really sets up the entire film, leading till the end of the film, what that has to do with. But basically, something happens to her mom. Young Estella has to make her way to London, and she basically gets by stealing and robbing people. She's a thief, and that sets up her, two sidekick or cronies, you want to call them, Jasper and Horace, as young kids, and they're just really good at robbing people and stealing jewels and money. But you can see that she's not really a terrible person. She's just trying to get by as a young kid. She doesn't have anybody except these two guys.
That's all she knows. She has this life now where she's going to have to make it on her own. She finds these other two kids that are like her. They're orphaned, and they're all going to depend on each other to get by and to rise up and to become successful. That's their plan eventually. So there's a lot of fun moments in this film. It sets up between the three of them. They pull off these little robberies and heists where they go and they're able to, get jewels and get money and sort of survive. And meant to be a dingy like loft apartment, but it's actually kind of cool how they have it all set up. It's kind of feels like a clubhouse vibe between the three of them and how they live. Yeah. I really like the actors who play Horace and Jasper. Obviously Paul Walter Hauser there. He's hilarious in this as the chubbier Horace. And then Jasper, who is sort of like, he's the smarter one out of the two. He's more devious, but they all work together so well. The three of them, it sets up these funny, lighthearted moments throughout the film. This film I love the tone that they set in this film. It feels a little more grown up than Disney, but it's still like you wouldn't have to be worried if you're watching with a younger kid. It doesn't show anything too graphic or anything, but it still feels more grown up, just in how everything's played out with the performances. And Emma Stone really shines in this role. I love how she embodies this character, and really sets the tone for how Cruella is and like her personality, her likes and desires. And I love that she had the British accent in this even to go with the character.
Yeah.
And I loved how she has this artistic spirit, and she's really good in fashion, and she comes in and she's able to shake things up in the fashion world, and that's sort of how she's going to rise up and throughout the film.
Yeah, I thought they really dived into that well in terms of the script of like how she became this character, this major, person in fashion and designing these costumes for all these heists that they do to steal money. And she designs all that. She's really creative, and that's her outlet, of being a designer and designing clothes. And she ends up finding this gig with the Baroness at this really, famous place in London in the 1970s, clothing store, whatever you want to call it, being a piss on a peasant in this company. She's like the janitor. There's this really
plunging
shitty,
toilets,
yeah, cleaning up
jobs
the
nobody
garbage,
else wants to do.
cleaning up the garbage, and she has a really terrible manager. This guy, like straight with the 70s hair. But the Baroness actually finds out, seeing these designs, finds out who this, Estella is, and hires her to basically be her peasant as well. We see Baroness' character. She's a really terrible human being, much like Cruella de Vil that we know from the cartoon and the movies, 101 Dalmatians, and you can kind of see where they're going with that. But Emma Thompson was really fantastic. She's always good. Everything she's in. She's very diverse, does a lot of different roles. I loved her in the Harry Potter movies. But she's a really great British actress, and she goes to a really dark place in this film, and being really mean to her, passive aggressive, condescending, showing that she's better than everybody. All her designs or other people that design them, that she's the best in the business. So it's pretty interesting what happens and how Estella eventually snaps and becomes this, different person, being Cruella. She was tired of it. She's fed up with the big business or this designer, and she wants to take over.
And take over she does by the end of the film, of course. Emma Thompson does do a great job. She's a really good foil for Estella's character. I loved how they played off each other. Obviously the Baroness is trying to take credit for all of Emma Stone's work coming in, because everything that Estella designs ends up being the best, the new best thing. And this leads obviously to some jealousy, but also the Baroness is going to use this to her advantage and take credit for it. Obviously, she's this big fashion icon in the world. Everybody knows who she is. So it makes sense that she's going to hire a bunch of young people and then have them design these awesome, amazing things that will lead, obviously to get her even more rich and get her more notoriety than she has. And her disrespect to Estella sort of obviously goes way too far. And I loved how Estella and the boys, Jasper and Horace, sort of planned their revenge. And it was very clever and obviously comical, because some of the schemes that they came up with, nobody's going to be able to put together. How they climbed up into windows and they did all this elaborate stuff, like all these big thought out plans to break into places, to steal jewels and everything. And just how they planned the whole concert where it introduced Cruella de Vil the very first time she showed up on scene was very cool. She took all the Baroness's thunder and sort of had her own fashion show there. Another thing I really love about this movie that helps setting the tone and keeps it fun is the soundtrack. You get a lot of great 60s music that was coming out of England. Obviously at the time you get, the Stones, obviously you get some classic rock songs that you'll know right away throughout the film, and different versions of them, different people singing them. But then, obviously the Rolling Stones are going to show up on that soundtrack too. And I loved, they did a good job of doing the music together. It felt like it really fit in with the whole vibe of the movie, with the way that everybody was dressed and just how a shot was really, it all felt within this same kind of universe. And you kind of bought that Cruella, somebody like that, would come along and sort of shake up the fashion world and get everybody to kind of dress like her and everything. Punk rock.
Yeah, they took it like the punk rock approach. One of my favorite scenes from the movie is when she's getting drunk and she redresses the mannequin in the window and she's singing, "These boots are made for walking." A lot of great songs, and it really kind of sets that punk atmosphere of going against, big organizations or big designers
against the establishment.
Against the establishment. And just the clothing, it had a very punk rock vibe to it, wearing leather and makeup and the big hair. And this is when punk rock was coming out in England back in the 70s. So, it played a really great backdrop with London and going through that punk rock era that eventually came over to America. So it had a cool punk rock vibe about it, much like the Joker meets Harley Quinn. I thought they did a really great job of establishing that backdrop and the music and everything that was kind of going on in the world back in the 70s. And the music really captured the tone of that too. So that was really well done.
And this movie's just fun overall. I mean, if you need 2 hours, 20 minutes to kill, Cruella has it all, really. It's got something for everybody here. Kids will like it. There's, obviously there's Dalmatians in this. There's another cute little dog that's sort of their little sidekick that they use on some of their heists throughout the film,
Yes.
which is cool. Horace and Jasper, they're both really likable friends and everything. You root for them. You want them to succeed on all their getting back at the big rich people and taking over. And Cruella eventually, obviously you're kind of rooting for obviously a villain here, but you understand with the story that they put forward, you understand how it morphs into this kind of, she becomes Cruella in a way, and what happens to her. And Emma Thompson's character, I didn't really see coming. I mean, everything made sense, but I wasn't thinking that at the start, like that, what happens between their characters and how they're involved and what happens with the conclusion of the story. I didn't really see it coming. So I had a great time with the film. Emma Stone and Emma Thompson, the two Emmas, really made this movie. I mean, if the two of them were anybody else, I don't think it would work. I think this was perfect casting with the two of them, and they both really embodied those characters. And I really had a great time with the film. No complaints with me. I mean, I didn't have big expectations. I'm not a huge Disney 101 Dalmatians fan or anything, but going by the trailers, I figured it would be fun, and it went over those expectations, I'd say. And I really enjoyed the film.
Definitely a movie I wasn't really paying attention to that much, and I saw some of the reviews come out saying that it's really solid. So I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a chance. Watch it with the wife over the weekend. She absolutely loved it because she was the character and the actress Emma Stone. But I had a really great time going in with low expectations. I was invested in the characters. I thought that was a really cool backstory and how it all ties into 101 Dalmatians having to do with the dogs. And you find out why she is the way she is. Well, because these dogs were pretty ferocious in this movie and just very intimidating and scary. And you can see why she became this character. And I know the villain that we know from the movies. Well, the only one really complaint I had, some of the CGI looked pretty bad, especially with the dogs, having to do with these Dalmatians that has to do with the mom dying early on in the film. It just looked like shit the entire movie. The CGI didn't look good, just in the dogs, and then a scene at the end in the ocean really bothered me, but maybe I'm just critiquing it too much. It's a Disney movie for kids, but that kind of brought me out of the movie in a few scenes. But just some minor complaints. I thought everything else really worked for the film. I love the period in the 1970s, England, the music and the costume design and cinematography. Everything was really great. Emma Stone elevated this character. It really made it her own, much like the Joker, Harley Quinn. I love the punk vibe to it. Craig Gillespie did a good job, directing this film. And I'm interested to see if they're going to bring in more live action films of villains from the Disney universe.
I read somebody suggest Ursula online. That would be kind of cool to see.
Ursula. Yeah, I can see that. That'd be cool.
I could see him do sort of like a villain, series of villain films. That would make sense. See how they rose up. This one did well. So if they even had that thought, I think this one will push that forward. I think we'll see some more from here if I had to guess.
Yeah. And this movie is both playing in theaters and on Disney, whatever premiere on Disney Plus. $30 if you guys aren't, feeling going to the movies. You can see this in the theater or watch it at home. Either experience really works, but it's a movie you should definitely check out. I went in with low expectations, had a really great time with it. Really great characters, some backstories, and just a great period piece that really worked for me. So with that being said, I'll give Cruella a 4 out of 5 Emma Stone hairpieces.
So yeah, I really loved this whole film. I love the dynamic between Emma Stone and Emma Thompson. Both actors really killed it as their characters and their dynamic and how their stories intertwined. I thought really made this film work. The directing by Craig Gillespie was really tight. He made things really fun. He got a cast together that was pretty pitch perfect. I loved Horace and Jasper. I loved seeing Uncle Mark Strong there show up as the same guy that we see him in all the other British movies. He's always there. And he doesn't disappoint either. He's good in his role. So it's cool seeing him. Yeah, you mentioned now I'm thinking about it, the CGI dogs did throw me off a little. That was kind of off-putting there. Why didn't they just get some real ones and shoot around them? I don't know. But
they did in the original in 1996. Why can't they do it now?
So for whatever reasons, they decided to computerize some of the Dalmatians there. But overall, I didn't really have any complaints. I just loved how fun this movie was. I really liked Emma Stone in the role. She was great. I loved how they made that character and into Cruella. I thought it was pretty clever. I didn't see how the Baroness and her were going to be sort of how they intertwined, and I loved how that everything came out in the end. So I had a great time with this. See this with your significant other for sure. If you got a girl, especially if she's into Disney, she's gonna like Cruella. It's a fun couple hours to sit and watch, whether you go to the theaters or stay at home and watch on Disney Plus. For me, this film I am going to give a 3.5 out of 5 Emma Stone hairpieces.
Yeah, and I will say it was pretty clever how they tied this in. Also, there's an after credits scene for people out there. So if you guys weren't aware of that, stick around, watch the credits, and there's after credit scene that really ties everything in together with the 101 Dalmatians, which is really clever, unique. I like how they did that. So if you guys weren't aware of that, stick around and watch that part. It'll make sense.
I did catch that. I was going to ask if you saw that too.
Yeah, because I read somebody online was talking about post or after credits. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something that ties it in. I was right. So it was cool how they did that. With that being said, we have more movie reviews, TV reviews, podcast interviews coming soon right here on our YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to us right here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, check us out on Cinephellas.com, the best in movie and TV news and reviews.
This kicks off the summer movie season, so get used to seeing our ugly mugs. Mainly every week we'll be reviewing something, whether it's a new show on a streamer or a new summer movie that's coming out. It's exciting that we got to get back to the movies this weekend. We saw Quiet Place 2. We reviewed that as well, and we got to see Cruella. So this was a big weekend. It's been a while since there was 2 big movies coming out the same weekend. So it feels like we're finally over the hump here, getting back to some level of normality, get back to the theaters. And I had a great time. I'm glad that you liked this film as well. We both had a great time. So we had a great time this weekend. We hope you guys check out Cruella and A Quiet Place 2. Feel free to leave a comment. Let us know what you guys thought of the movie. Tell us how beautiful we are. We love compliments. We're always fishing for them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our page here and tell your friends. We like to review these movies and shows for you guys. We're just a couple old mates here from Illinois. We like to get together and do these with you. We're doing them on Zoom now. We're going to have to get together in person very soon now that Uncle Logan is all vaccinated and ready to go. We're ready to party. Let's get together and have a backyard barbecue and get real wild and review some films.
Well, yeah, we'll have to review like 30 things when they're over. Hopefully we'll be getting a new house, have a new setup, movie theater. That's why I haven't been shooting on the green screen, because we're packing as we speak. So that's why I've been doing these reviews with Henry. Plus, I'm having a great time doing it. But I will be back once I move, hopefully in the next month, shooting more reviews and talking to this guy and having him come over to the movie theater, Cinephellas Theater, watch some great films and maybe go about it like Siskel and Ebert with the movie theater setup. So stay tuned for that. We got a lot of great projects I'm very excited for this summertime. We just keep growing here, thinking of new ideas and new, things that we can do to keep it fresh here. And we are very happy that you guys are following along with us, and we've been gaining followers steadily. And we love getting together with the other fellows on the podcast, picking each other's brains, hearing from them is cool, hearing from different perspectives. Everybody thinks a little differently. We have some that, obviously didn't like Cruella as much as others, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to think the same. Everybody's point is valid. It's nice hearing from those wild rascals every couple of weeks. So stay tuned for another podcast soon. Stay tuned to this channel. As always, we had a great time. Cruella, we had a great time with you. Aunt Emma Stone, she killed it, along with Aunt Emma Thompson. They did a great job. We love this film, so make sure to check it out. This has been a great time. Hopefully all you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe. We'll be back very soon. So this is Uncle Logan Myers, my good mate over there.
Henry Hill.
Signing out until the next movie review. Cheese!
Cheese.
These boots are made for walking. That's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk off.